All right, so I am very excited to introduce all of you to who I believe is going to be the next chair of the Democratic Party of Georgia, Mr. Charlie Bailey.
From your lips to God's ears.
You're the second person who said that in that seat.
It's a great Southern phrase.
And, you know, Charlie, we haven't known each other too well. I think you met me when I gave a speech at the Cobb County Democratic Gala when I had said that I believe democracy was about to code.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, I think those words were prescient.
Yeah.
And you have been around. You've run for lieutenant governor,
Mm-hmm.
attorney general,
Mm-hmm.
and now are running for this seat for the Democratic Party of Georgia chair. And for
Correct.
everybody out there, I just wanted to give them a chance to get to know you a little bit. Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Harris County, Georgia, which is in. We have a map.
Well,
these
not
are all
Georgia.
Cobb
This
specific
is
maps.
all very Cobb.
It is West Georgia,
Okay.
on the border with Alabama, right?
Like east of, or west of Hiram, west of Paulding?
South.
Okay.
Yeah. So, like right below LaGrange,
Okay, yeah.
above Columbus.
Okay.
It's where Callaway Gardens is.
Yeah.
So it's as you come up the western border, you cross over the fall line,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the border between Muskogee and Harris County. So I grew up on a cattle farm there in Harris County. My folks have been there for 200 years, and my mama's people. So grew up there, and was raised by a strong Democratic mother. She was there yesterday at the forum. I don't know if you got a chance to meet her.
Unfortunately, no. Yeah. But I would love to.
Yeah, she's. This is a really funny thing, Corinne. Like in both my campaigns, both as the AG nominee in 2018 and the lieutenant governor nominee in 2022. Sometimes Mama would I had two conflicting events, so we'd send my mother as a surrogate, and every single time I would get texts, "Hey man, you ain't even got to come next time. Like, just send Mama." Like, everybody loves my mother, but she's a very strong Democrat and raised me on stories of the civil rights movement, Bobby Kennedy's 1968 campaign.
Mm-hmm.
They were formative for me. I remember her driving around in Harris County. That was like, this is, the evolution of the state, and everywhere used to be Democratic, and then as things moved Republican, Harris County is one of the first counties to move Republican.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, so it was very Republican when I was growing. I mean, it still is, but when I was growing up. So she had a Dukakis sticker on the back of the car. There weren't any other Dukakis stickers on the back of the car in 1988. And I remember in 1992, her waking me up, in the middle of the night to let me know that Bill Clinton had won the presidency. So this is the kind of mother, that I was raised by.
What was that like growing up in? It seems like that dichotomy of your household being one way and being surrounded by another point of view. What was that like?
Well, how long do you have on this podcast?
Hey man, we got time.
It's Patterson Hood calls the duality of the Southern thing. It is the lead man for drive-by truckers. There were a lot of people that I grew up with, and whose parents and grandparents and everything wouldn't have had their livelihood but for Democrats, but for the New Deal and that kind of thing. But racism is the original sin in this country, and in the South, we've grappled with it in a way that a lot of other areas of the country never have. And so people who literally owe, I don't think anybody really owes their lives, but who were directly impacted by democratic policies, whether it be Social Security and any other New Deal policies, or Medicare and Medicaid. Lyndon Johnson, turned against the Democratic Party. It's not all about race, but frankly and unfortunately, a lot of it was and still is. So it's complicated, and I had no shortage of conversations growing up where little Charlie or whatever, I'm like, 11 years old, like trying to make these arguments. Literally, I was this much of a nerd about politics, that I was like making these arguments, and to my fellow 11 and 12-year-olds, sixth graders and seventh graders and stuff like that. Um, so, but I guess it we are all just formed by the experiences we have. For me, it was, it's just foundational that the Democratic Party is the only political party that gave a damn about regular folks, and that gave a damn that, what, everybody, including black folks and, um, later Hispanics and everything. I mean, our politics used to be just black and white in the South, but obviously it's more nuanced, and as many more, wonderful folks have come into the state. But, gave a damn at all about black people. I mean, there was a time when the Republican Party did. You go way back in the 50s and everything, like in Georgia, that was the party of civil rights. But
Right.
that all changed. And so anyway, it was just the right thing to do, frankly, to be a Democrat. That's the way I was raised.
How do you think that it informs or your position as chair? Like, what lessons do you take from that informs your actions as chair?
People are complicated,
True.
and
Very true.
and we can't give up on folks. We can and do abhor their votes and sometimes the people, that they support. But the strength of the Democratic Party is that we're the party that recognizes and stands up for that human dignity that everybody has. That's our strength. That's always been our strength, and we have to keep that front of mind and be talking to people in a way that allows them to come back. Like one of the hardest things for a human being to do is admit when they're wrong. My wife reminds me of this all the time, but it really
No,
is.
you're absolutely right.
It's
You're
very,
absolutely
very hard for any of us,
right.
even about small things.
Mhm.
We always have it. Well, no, it's because I thought this, or and so getting people to admit, oh, you really fucked that up. Excuse my language, but like
I welcome it on this
you
podcast.
really fucked that vote up. Like that's really hard to get people to say that. We don't have to get them to say that. We just have to get, whether there are people that like did not vote,
Right.
which if you're not voting for a Democrat, that's a mistake in my view.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a mistake. Whether they voted for some third party or whatever, I view that as a mistake. Whether they voted for a Republican, I view that as a mistake. They're all mistakes. We don't need them to admit they're mistakes. We need to be making an argument that appeals to what they need in their lives and what they expect out of their government. And we got to allow for them to come back or come to us. This is not all about getting people back.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if we keep centered that everybody's got that human dignity, that is what we're fighting for. We're not trying to win an argument or prove a point. We are trying to get folks to vote for Democrats because Democrats are the ones that have their backs. And when you're trying to convince anybody to do a thing, which is what I've spent my entire career doing as an attorney, taking some evidence and convincing someone, i.e. a jury or a judge, to do something, and sometimes an insurance company or a client, we have to make the best arguments that are gonna get the thing done. In this instance, the thing done is the vote for the Democrat. Mm-hmm. And in my experience of swimming upstream, and frankly, sometimes some ugly dynamics. You also, here's the other thing I know going on, but like, here's another thing, like you can't get down you know, when someone said, and like, there's going to be people we can't reach. Like, you try, you make the best argument, and someone's, flat out. And I'm not saying everybody that votes for Republicans are racist. That's not my point. But there are going to be people like that.
Right.
And it just, okay, that's that, and move on.
Right.
You have to be moving on. The next thing. What's the next thing? Who's the next person? And not dwell on the very sad fact that you do have that kind of hate. It is more than sad. But we have to, okay, that's the case. What are we doing to win the next election? Kind of move to the next, make the argument that respects each person's dignity.
All right. So before we get into like the heavy policy discussion, you're married.
Mm-hmm.
How long you been married?
Just like as of 2 weeks ago, 2 years.
Okay. All right. Yeah. And I didn't know if you had children or not.
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. But you did marry an Indian woman.
I did.
Bengali. Oh, Bengali woman.
Yeah,
oh,
yeah.
I didn't know she was Bengali.
Yeah.
Okay. So what is your favorite Southeast Asian food?
Oh, man. Her mom just brought over some Deemer chop. I'm going to say that wrong.
That's all right. We don't expect you to get it right.
Yeah, the hard-boiled egg with the mashed potatoes around it and then fried. I don't even know if that's a special Bengali thing or not. Okay. But the first time I ever had it, she had it, and she made it. It's amazing. God, she also does a mutton biryani.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
That's fantastic. It's so good that we had for our food for our wedding.
Okay.
Which we had a Christian ceremony and a Hindu ceremony and a party both nights. So we had like a 2-day.
Wow.
Which I know is short. And also, don't talk about the guest list. It was like 250 people, and her mother was like, "This is too few people.
Too small. It's too small.
I got 100 more people I got to have."
That's right.
But
we roll deep.
She actually gave the recipe to the caterer for that mutton biryani and was like, "Do this."
No way.
Yeah, and they did her mutton biryani as one of the dishes.
Oh wow. Okay.
So, God, there's so many things I really like. We could go on and on.
Well, let me ask you this. And so, part of this interview is to kind of get to know you. And the last question for this part, what would you like people to know about you and what you bring internally to this position that they may not? This is what happens when you get interviewed by a palliative care doctor.
Mm-hmm. Man, they may not know. I guess that, the thing that, and we kind of talked about a little bit already, but the thing that really drives the ethos of my politics and everything is that human dignity, which for me is also religious. It's about my faith. That everybody, and I know not everybody shares the same faith. Again, I'm the man that had a Hindu and Christian ceremony. But everybody is a child of God. Everybody has that spark of the divine in them and is capable of wonderful things and uplifting things. And love is our greatest strength. Absolutely. As human beings. Mm-hmm. It is when we're at our best. It enables every other good thing that comes from love, and love comes from that human dignity. Mm-hmm. So that's a very foundational part of my worldview. It's not something. I've talked about my faith and everything. I was a religion major, on top of being a poli-sci major in college, but that's not something that normally comes up at forums.
But I'm glad that you're able to talk about your faith, because so much of what I see when I talk to people in the hospital is that we're all pretty much the same. We care about our faith and we care about our family.
Mm-hmm.
That's what brings meaning into our lives. And whether you're subscribed to the teachings of Jesus or Muhammad or Abraham or Mavir or anybody else, it does come back to loving each other.
Mm-hmm.
We're all human together.
Yep.
On this planet together. And I'm so glad if it's better to love and take care of someone. I think I made that point on the podcast last time, is that I feel as though we are at our best, or we're meant to care for one another.
Mm-hmm.
It feels good to care for one another.
Right.
And I'm glad to hear that that's one of the things that you bring to it's your focus.
Right.
One thing that you've talked about is the strengths that you bring to this position is your ability to fundraise. And I think that it goes without, this podcast is about money. Fundraising is a necessary component to be successful, without a doubt. I don't even think that's up for debate. The question then becomes, really, is how do we spend that money? Mm-hmm. How would you spend that money?
So, principally two ways. One is, to spend directly and strategically on behalf of Democrats running for office. And it takes back to, the foundational point. The only job of the state party is to elect as many Democrats to as many positions across the state as is humanly possible. So it would stand to reason that most of our money needs to be spent on that, on doing the one job we have. Mm-hmm. Just last year, you and I have talked about this, just last year, you have several examples where the Republican Party's on the field, the state Republican Party. They spent hundreds of thousands of dollars across swing seats, Tangi Herrings and Macon, which she barely won. It's actually not even a swing seat. Tangi's district is and she's in the state house. She's a Democrat. But it's tilt D, lean D. It's really not swing, but it was a couple hundred vote win because Republicans spent about $250,000 to $300,000 against her. Wow. We spent zero. And then you go to Susie Greenberg's race against Deborah Silcox in North Fulton, mm-hmm. and the State Republican Party and its affiliates spend $400,000. We spend zero. Go out to Farouk's race out in Gwinnett. He was defending a seat, and he loses re-election. They spent, State Republican Party and its affiliates, $300,000 to $350,000 against them. We spend zero. Now, here's the thing. I'm a nerd about politics. I've been working in politics, either as a young Democrat, staffer, organizer, and after law school, donor, an advisor to candidates, a statewide nominee, twice myself, a lawyer, pro bono for Democratic causes. I know a lot about major campaigns and major fundraising. I don't know everything, but for sure I know this. If one side's on the field and the other side ain't, you got a lot smaller chance of being of winning. And so that ends.
But why do you, that's so transparently obvious to me. And people are going to ask, why is it this way? Why didn't we spend?
And the truth is, Brent, I don't know. I'm on the state committee, been on the state committee since 2019. I'm obviously involved. I've been in this party for a long time, always, as I just laid out, a lot of different roles and everything. But I don't have full visibility into why those decisions were made, frankly. I don't know. Is it because we didn't have the money? That's a big problem. Is it because we had the money and we chose not to spend it? In some ways, that's a bigger problem, but I don't know. Truthfully, don't know why. And part of what, if I end up, getting this position, what I'm going to have to do is get in there, get under the hood, and see, okay, do we have a budget? What is it?
Right.
What was it last year? What was it the year before? How do we bring in our money? What are the different methods? How do we spend it? What were the rationales for it? I'm going to have to do a full assessment of the entire thing, including operations, staff, and everything else. And so I'll probably find that answer when I get there, but I don't know the answer right now. But I just know it's ridiculous and that it ain't going to happen under me. I'm going to raise a tremendous amount of money, And we are going to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars in each of these swing seats to flip them. And if you think about it this way, I already have the top 5 state house races already picked out that we're going after. There's 4 in Metro, and there's 1 in Southwest Georgia, the southwest corner. And then there's a tier 2 in the House. I got a top state Senate one as well, but let's focus on the House. Mm-hmm. And, you know, the environment might improve to where we can reach into the tier 2. By the way, that decision is going to be made based on data, not because I woke up one morning and I was like, I decided we're going to do this. Like, that's not professional. That's not the way it's done. We're going to professionalize the party. We're going to have polling and focus groups out of it. Data-driven decisions about where to make these investments. It's hard enough to raise all this money. You can't just, like, toss it around. So, but let's say the environment improves to where we're going to reach for, like, 3 or 4 more in tier 2. Let's say of those 8 to 9 seats, let's say we win 6. We go into a session in 2027 where the Republicans have 94, we have 86. All the really bad stuff that passed this year, none of it could have passed with an 8-vote margin. That is directly having an impact on people's lives.
So even if we're in the minority, we still wield power.
We still wield power. And you're getting real close to a coalition speaker territory, which has happened. It happened before in Georgia when it moved, when Democrats, we lost power about 20 years ago, where the margin got so small that you actually had like a coalition speaker where briefly you had a Democrat in charge, but they gave power to some Republicans, committee chairs and that kind of thing. It is not beyond the realm of possibility.
Hard to imagine for me, I guess.
It's very hard. I'm not predicting it, but I'm illustrating the point of that's how close you're getting. And when you get there, then all you need is 5 to flip the chamber. So, you know, the majority in the state house is within striking distance. I'm not predicting it next year. I mean, that would take a really, really big wave, and it could happen. But we are within a couple of cycles of absolutely striking distance, even with the gerrymandering that we were faced with.
So a couple questions to that. How, for the people out there, especially for young people that watch the podcast, how does one go about raising money?
So the way to think about money is broadly in 2 categories.
Okay.
Political money. And let me just say, I'm for publicly financed campaigns. Okay, I think it would be.
Yeah, that would be amazing.
It would be amazing. I hope we have it in our lifetime. It ain't the world we live in, so these are the rules we have to play by. Broadly speaking, you've got 2 buckets. You've got your quote unquote small dollars, and then you've got your larger dollars.
Yep.
Your small dollars are mostly a digital effort. Think those texts you get and the emails you get and social media and all that kind of stuff. That's all your quote-unquote small dollar kind of raise. We do some of that at the state party, but it's also one of those that I'm going to have to get there to say, you know, what firm are we using? Are we using the best firm? Do we have the best data? Do we have the most up-to-date data? What is tactics we're using? I've got to evaluate all that to see if it's... But I know we do some, but I don't know who we use, if we're doing everything right, blah, 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 what's it bringing in? But, like, that's your small dollar thing. Okay. We can raise a lot of money that way because we got something to sell here in Georgia. And for related reasons, we can raise a lot, and I'm going to raise a lot with large dollars. You start with rebuilding the state fundraising network. I'm the only one running that's got a state fundraising network. And I raised well over $4 million in my campaigns as a nominee, AG nominee in 18, lieutenant governor nominee in 22. And those are just old-fashioned, have a meeting, phone call, you know, and you're getting as much as you can get. Now, the state party can raise unlimited funds. Somebody can stroke $1 million check if they want to. I'm not predicting anybody, you know, but, you know.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, and we're going to ask for some of those sums. I mean, I'm not fooling around when I say we're going to raise millions in. And we've got something to sell, but that takes the ability to do it. And again, I'm the only one that's ever done it in a major way as the principal, not as the staffer, which they are very important. I couldn't have done what I did without my finance staff in both my campaigns. But as a person that's sitting across the table or on the phone making the ask, I'm the only one that's ever done on a major scale, which means millions. But you got to sell something, which is what, as a trial lawyer, I've done my entire career. It's using evidence to try to convince someone to do something, whether that's, a jury or a judge or something like that. Campaigning is much the same. Mm-hmm. And getting someone to invest, you're selling an idea of something. And so then we have to, once you rebuild the state, then there's a whole national fundraising deal. And just like we're going to have a 159 county organizing strategy, we have a 50 state fundraising strategy. And because we are a battleground, there's major money, whether that be in entities, mm-hmm. Groups, whether they be individuals, that will invest in Georgia if you have credibility and you've got a plan that these kind of professional givers mm-hmm. understand as like a good plan and a professional.
And so, okay, so if I'm going to reflect back to you what I heard, small donors, large donors, 50-state strategy on top of that. And the money that you get primarily is going to be used for supporting candidates directly.
Yes, and the second piece, so that's, okay. The second piece is also investing in, so we have an actual infrastructure okay. that is a year-round infrastructure built primarily through the county committees. This is vitally
so through the county committees.
Yeah.
Okay. Because that hasn't been there. That support has not been there.
And the truth is, like, what has happened is when we have a big campaign, we're coming through and reinventing the wheel. I mean, instead of having a year-round organizing effort that is run through the counties, where obviously you're not running at 100 miles an hour all the time, but
you're building, constantly building.
You're constantly building. You're constantly getting. Oh, do we have a precinct captain here? Are they rolling off, or we need a new one? Mm-hmm. Do we have a street captain for this little, like every single street? Do we have somebody? Are we constantly like keeping those relationships up so that when time comes and we need them, we're not like, who can we get on the street? Right. Do all that before. I mean, this is just the basic kind of building blocks of organizing mm-hmm. that's got to be done. And let me say this as well. There's there's a lot of counties in this state that don't have county parties at all. So it's supporting the work of county parties that are, some of them are quite advanced, like Cobb is an example. And I'm not being solicitous. I mean, y'all. It's a good. I'll take it all, but yeah, it's a good county party. I mean, y'all got a lot, and it's easier. I'll say this: it's also easier to be a good county party in a Cobb, in a county like Cobb, that has so much, just sheer number of people mm-hmm. to draw talent from. In smaller counties, it's just harder. There's fewer people, right. But we got to support that work. We got to support the work of existing county parties that need, basic technical support. They need, the research that's going to come from the research division that I'm going to build. That does.
Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So the second most important thing any state party's got to do, besides raise a tremendous amount of money, is be the engine, library, whatever you want to use, for research. That is mostly opposition research. So one of the reasons like Brian Kemp's approval rating is as high as it is he's kind of gotten a free pass.
Yes.
I mean, you can't, I'm sorry, but just sending a couple press releases.
Not going to cut it.
Like, if you're sending press releases and people are doing full-on stories based on it, well, shit, continue to do that. That's easy. Mm-hmm. That's, very low, output for big gain. But, if you're sending press releases, and you might as well just be, sending them to a black hole, nobody's covering what you're saying, it doesn't fucking matter. you have to be aggressive about hammering these folks. And whether it's, Senator Ossoff has got a re-election coming up. The big question is, is Kemp going to run? Or is it going to be one of these other jackballs that runs? Regardless of whether it's Kemp or Mike Collins or fill in the fucking blank, like, we should have already been hammering these people in earned media. What that's newspapers, TV, radio, podcasts. Okay. You're not paying for it. Okay. You're pushing these people to cover things. You can't, but you got to hammer those people. Well, that all begins
like now.
Yes,
like yesterday.
Yeah. A couple of years ago, but it all begins with a research department, because what you're hammering them with, you got to know that bill that Kemp's signing, that his brother-in-law, I'm just making something up. I'm not, casting aspersions or whatever. But that his brother-in-law's got a stake, in that particular bill. You have to do research to know, not just at the broad level,
but granular detail.
Yeah, but the granular detail of beyond just that's bad policy, which that's important, but also there's a ton of corruption going on down there.
Yes.
You have to have like a research department doing that research to inform how you're hammering these Republicans. Like that is what is telling you what the talking points are going to be. So that we're not just hitting them on lining the pockets of billionaires and big corporations at the expense of working people, setting up a tax code that rewards those folks and punishes working people. We're not just hitting them, and that's vitally important. We're going to hit them for all that, but also the specifics of lining their own pockets. Burt Jones, how many things has he gotten through that legislature that specifically help him and his family and their businesses? Hint, it's a lot. But nobody's just going to know that.
Right.
People are busy. They're living their lives. Like they don't have research departments. That's what we're for. You cannot expect voters to make a decision in a vacuum if you're not giving them the information.
And what I'm hearing is that you are willing to take a much more combative approach.
Absolutely. Look, there's things, I ain't got no problem just absolutely unloading on Republicans with cause. Everything I've ever said in one of my campaigns, one of the reasons I got 49% in 2018 is I beat the fool out of Chris Carr for not keeping the people of Georgia safe. For not having a gang unit in his, he's supposed to be the top prosecutor in the state, didn't even have a gang unit. And I was a gang prosecutor. In 2022, one of the reasons I had the closest margin of any Democrat not named Raphael Warnock is because I beat the fool out of Burt for being extreme, both being under investigation by the FBI, but also not being for an exception for rape or incest when it comes to abortion. And in all the paid media, radio, TV, digital, and everything that I did over the course of those two campaigns, my guess is probably 85% of it was negative. So I say that to say I'm not afraid to swing, metaphorically, in this way, and you have to. Our people, and I include in that folks that haven't voted for Democrats, maybe because they weren't inspired, they didn't have confidence, and they didn't vote for anybody, or because they voted for Republicans. They got full cause to be really fucking pissed about the fact that the American dream is not as attainable as it was 20 years ago.
Absolutely.
It isn't. And we need, when we have been our best, when we are true to the heart of what the Democratic Party is, we are pissed on their behalf. And we're the ones that say, you give me the hammer, I'm going to hammer these folks for what they've done to you. And we're going to make sure you get the opportunity so you can, with good conscience and with hope, tell your kids that the life that they're going to have is going to be one that had more opportunity than yours. But you've got to aggressively prosecute this case. And in my career, whether that's a trial lawyer, prosecutor, in my campaigns, I have never shrunk from, I've always had evidence for everything I said. I'm not talking about foul shots. I'm talking about backed up everything, but you have to be aggressive. And people want to know that you're going to fight for them.
Yeah, I think that's what I think I'll speak for me and a lot of people. We want a fighter.
Mm-hmm.
We want somebody that's willing to take the message of the fact that we have such wealth inequality as the main reason why we see so many of the maladies in society that we do.
Yeah.
That taxing the billionaires is a legitimate message, as opposed to blaming immigrants.
Exactly.
So, we talked about you're going to raise money.
Mm.
You're going to put it toward opposition research or research firm. You're going to invest in candidates. And
invest in county parties.
In county parties, right. County parties, that's right. Unwilling and unafraid to drop money where we need to, for select races. And having a 159 county strategy.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm curious is that, I've never run for public office, don't plan on it. I believe in the back end infrastructure part.
Mm-hmm.
But what are the lessons that you've learned, number one, running a state campaign? And then two, what advice do you have for people out there that are interested in running for school board, for municipal races, first time runners? Because they don't know.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say to them?
So on the first part, I mean, I kind of knew some of this. I don't have a cheat code when it went into my campaign for statewide office because, I was the political coordinator of the governor's campaign in 05-06. The last Democratic lieutenant governor of the state, Mark Taylor, who ran against Sonny Perdue, and I managed a congressional race and everything. And so I had some of this knowledge going in, but this is a big, big state.
Right.
Population-wise, area-wise.
Absolutely.
And it is diverse in many ways. Both, we're one of the most diverse states in the country, ethnically, racially, but also urban, rural, suburban, and even different kinds of rural. I know this from being rural. West Georgia is not the same thing as even rural Southwest Georgia. I know some people think get outside of 285, it's all South Georgia. First off, that's not true. Secondly, even within people from West Georgia know they're West Georgia. It's not South Georgia. So anyway, there's a tremendous amount of diversity, and it takes a lot of time to get around and be present. That's like what the kids say or whatever. But to be in these communities and showing up in these communities really, really does matter. Particularly some of our smaller communities.
Being there
physically being there is a big deal. Now that's very hard to do when you're running statewide and you also have to raise. You never have enough money.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very proud of the money. We've set records in both my races, but it was, we didn't have enough. If I had another $10 million in each, I would have either won the AG's race or won the lieutenant governor's race. It's hard to balance that. It really is, because it takes you're the main person raising all the money. You're
right.
Really?
People want to talk to you.
Got it. There's only, very few people, people can raise money, and I'm sure you've experienced that. But the lion's share of it, you've got to do it. So balancing doing that and being present and being physically there. It is a challenge, but it's one you have to. You're never going to be able to do it all, but you just got to do as much of it as you can, and you got to balance those things. But we've got good people all over the state. That's the other thing. It's a welcoming place, and you can cut into margins everywhere. So that's running statewide. That's my main takeaways. You need a ton of money, and you also got to get everywhere you can get. And advice for people running in local races and everything. One is raise as much money. I'm just a broken record of stuff, but it's just
the realities are the reality.
If you don't have money,
you can't do shit.
Obviously, if you run for school board, you don't need $4 million or whatever. But if you don't have money for your race, it's just not going to matter. Like you can't. Um, Gone are the days where you can show up at a town and everybody's coming out to town square to hear your speech because you're serving barbecue or whatever, and because there's not fuck else all going on. So this is what they're doing. You know, that's what was in the 1940s. You could like travel and like meet all your voters. Like in these days, like you have got to have money to, you know, whether it's paying for like uh, organizing in the canvassers, whether it's the mail pieces, whether it's so. Main advice: raise money early as much as you can. It's not fun. It's never going to be fun. But like, if you're not willing to do it, don't run. You got to raise money early. Raise as much as you can. One, it like sometimes intimidates other people, keeps them from getting in the race. Two, you're going to need it to run your campaign. The second thing I would say is you can have a big impact in you know, school boards, county commission, you know, city hall races. Like this stuff is like vitally important. And one of the things that I want to do is, you know, every local Democrat elected in the state um, is going to be connected to the state party. Like we are going to have a line in for every. There doesn't need to be a Democrat in office anywhere that doesn't know exactly who they can call at the state party and get the latest research, the latest talking points based on that research. We're going to be.
I mean, that's a tremendous amount of organization.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And that's what I'm hearing you say is like
we got to have it. I mean, we have. This is the thing. We are blessed to be in a battleground state. But the curse of it, it's like a really big battleground state. Mm-hmm. It's not like when Iowa was a battleground state. And, you know, I'm not saying that wasn't hard. Good people of Iowa. But, like, it's a lot smaller. It is easier. It is easier. It costs less money. Here, you know, if we're going to be serious and we are going to say the only hope, and this is what my view, the only hope for working people in this state is the Democratic Party. For all of our faults, and we have got credibility to make up. Our disapproval is the highest it's ever been. Yet again, another poll out today, ABC saying that. But we're it. We're the only hope for the idea that folks aren't going to be snatched off the street in broad damn daylight, hauled off to God knows where without a lawyer or without evidence. And so if we say these are the stakes, that we have got to act in accordance with those stakes. That means fighting every day, beating the fool out of these folks, metaphorically. And it also means staying connected with all of our allies all over the state. All of these Democratic elected officials. It goes back to the very, what is the whole point of the party? To elect as many Democrats to office as is humanly possible. Wouldn't it necessarily flow from that to have a relationship with all those people?
I mean, what you're saying makes sense to me. It's patently obvious, but we haven't done it.
We're going to do it.
And I think one thing that I hear you saying, it's brought up a lot, you know, national Democrat poll, right? Like nationally, Democrats have a pretty bad brand. But I have made the case here that I'm a Cobb County Democrat.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we have our own identity. And I don't know how you feel about what is the identity of the Georgia Democrat.
I would say we fight for the dignity of every person, and we fight for every person because of that dignity to have a shot at achieving a fair shot at achieving the American dream. That we fight for working people. That's what we do. Every single day, that is what we do. And that is rooted in the idea that we believe in the dignity of every single one of those people and the dignity of the work that they do. And that's who we fight for. That's what we do as Georgia Democrats, period. That's what we do.
One of the questions I ask all my patients and families when I meet them and they're sick or dying in the hospital is, what brings meaning into your life? And for you, I'll ask the same question I ask everybody. What brings meaning? What makes life worth living for you?
My family and my friends. just the people that I love and that love me. That is the truest representation of God's love, is our love for one another, and that there's a broad love, for all people, but then there's the personal love, and those are the happiest times. I mean, that's the peak of living, is being with the ones you love.
And I wanted to give you an opportunity to speak directly to people, because I'm going to send this to different people, that state committee members that are going to watch this episode. There are going to be people that are young Democrats that are watching this. I'll let you have the floor. What you want their takeaway to be?
Well, that everything you've heard, I mean, that is the best, representation of like what my heart is, where I come from. As I'm making every decision, and we can talk about, as we have, like my experience in fundraising, my experience in campaigns, my ideas, and all that. But I want you to keep all that in your mind as you're voting, and going forward as we're working together, assuming I win. But I'd like you to understand where it comes from, what it is based in. And it is based in that idea that we are all of us, worthy of love and worth fighting on behalf of. We all have that human dignity. We all deserve a fair shot, and that is core to my belief, and that informs every single decision I make.
Well, Charlie Bailey, the future chair of the Democratic Party of Georgia, I'm so glad to have had you on.
Yeah.
And
thank you for having me.
I think, just from my perspective, the reason why we do this work is, the reason I do this work is for people. It's also for my children. And my hope that you, watching on the other side of the screen, realize that there are people that care. There are people that are fighting in the Democratic Party that are not just in it for the money, that are not just in it for themselves, that are in it for all of us. And I'm very excited to have somebody that's willing to throw a metaphorical punch or two and really keep the Republicans' feet to the fire, because I agree with you. They have gotten a pass for far too fucking long. And that shit ends this Saturday when you get elected.
That's right. That's right.